platform updates. Okay, so hopefully for people that are sort of seasoned attendees, you'll remember I've been talking quite a lot recently about the fact that we're doing a lot of stuff in the background. So some of this is actually going to deliver into new features, but there's like effectively a whole load of underlying stuff that just needs to be done, whether that's modernization of code to say newer versions of .NET or whatever it might be, or just new things that we need to enable before we can start to develop the user interface. And really, because of that, we haven't got maybe some of the level of platform updates that we sort of started to see last year. So just sort of from that clarity point of view. However, there are things going on, and there are a couple of things that I would absolutely sort of love to sort of just confirm to you really to start with. So with respect to Studio, I would like to just absolutely confirm. I know I mentioned this on the last Lab Developer Workshop, but ultimately Arabic support's fully released, it's fully enabled. So if you need to create labs and use the lab client in Arabic, we fully support that now, and you can put Arabic text in the instruction that you create. When we release the AI instruction translator tool that I demonstrated last month, you will absolutely be able to also do translation of instructions into Arabic as well. Okay, so that'll be one of the languages you'll be able to pick. One thing, obviously, just to highlight, with the AI translation instruction, of course, those things are not perfect. Effectively, our recommendation is always this is going to get you, let's say, between 70 and 80% there, and you're going to need someone to proofread it. But ultimately, it's going to get you pretty close. I do know of one customer that's pilot testing this, and the way they're doing it is they're just doing the AI translation and then putting the labs in the wild and waiting for customers to come back and tell them there's mistakes. That's maybe some people, for some organizations, might be regarded as too high a risk of strategy, but ultimately it's down to organizations to make those decisions. So that's sort of released and it's all fully in production now, all done. I want to preview a couple of other things for you. Okay. So these are not in production yet. These are things that are going to be happening over the summer, but because again we regard yourselves as a trusted audience, we like to show you things a little bit earlier than we share sort of to the general public, if you like. So the first things is we're looking to have a new instruction editor. So hopefully most of you are familiar with sort of editing instructions in our classic editor. So what we call the Monaco editor. I'm just waiting for something to fire up here. Excuse me. But ultimately, we're going to have a brand new instruction editor get released. Okay. And I would just like to be able to show you that. But for some strange reason, the world is going slow. Okay. One of the things that we do, and it always catches me out sometimes, is we often do a push of updates to our QA platform at this time of the day. And I've just been caught out by that because our QA platform has just gone offline. Okay. So it just caught me out completely, which is fantastic. So I'll do that. I'll do that demonstration in a second. So we'll come back to that demonstration in a moment. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a different demonstration to start with. So I'm going to talk about the second bullet point on here, which is skill tagging. Okay. So looking at skill tagging. Okay. Yeah, we just put, yeah. So looking at skill tagging allows us to attach a skills framework to our existing labs. So skill frameworks are becoming more and more important to all organizations around the world. Okay, whether they build their own skills framework or whether they actually want to go and take an industry standard skills framework like the NIST cybersecurity framework, for example. Okay, so we're starting to build this into our platform so you can actually start to attach skill tag data to lab profiles if you want to. So if you've got the appropriate permission, and this is a permissions-based thing, so you can control who can actually do this, okay? If they've got the appropriate permissions, they can add skills to a lab profile, okay? So this can be obviously fantastic for those people that are charting skills and doing skill signals and all those types of things. So the idea is, depending which framework you've decided that you want to use, you can hit the add skill, and then you can use keyword search for actually deciding what skills that you would like to add to a particular lab profile. And as you can see, you can add as many skills as you actually want against this lab profile. What you can also do, okay, is you can then also, when you edit activities, so if I come in here and edit an activity, okay, it says come in here, okay. When you edit an activity, what you can also do is you can then choose to add those skills to the appropriate activity as well. Okay, so what this is going to allow you to do is, if you're an API customer, okay, when you build your lab profiles, you can define what skills this lab profile is connected to, especially if you're validating. But basically, if you complete these labs, okay, this should mean these are the skills you can achieve. You can then break those skills down to specific activities. So if you get this activity right, this is the skill you've achieved. This is the skill you've achieved if you've got that activity right, okay? And then all of that data will become available via our API integration. So you'll be able to bring that data in to your platform and then obviously use that data however you want to use that data. If your platform doesn't support skill signals and skill tagging and things along those lines, okay, what you'll also be able to do is take advantage of our Insight reporting engine. So our Insight reporting engine will give you skills-based dashboards. So you'll be able to look at skills, who's got the skills, those sorts of things. So we will be doing some reporting, which is going to allow you to sort of utilize that. That's a little way down the road, because obviously we haven't got this into release yet. And of course, when we start to look at our integrations with other systems, so you think about, we have an integration with Degreed. Some of you might be Degreed customers. Yeah, we'll pass all this skilling data into the Degreed platform as well. So that can align with skill signals in Degreed, and that's where you can then start to do things like plot the journey, the learning journey for your staff, so they can move from one job role to another and make sure they've got all the correct skills in place. So this is something that we're adding to the platform. I'm doing this in production, so there is, a lot of this is in production. It's just not available for customers yet today, because we're still working on it. We're still making some changes. We're still doing some updates and things. In terms of out the box, at the moment, we have support effectively for 2 skill frameworks. Okay, there will be more. Okay. But basically, we've got the 2 that are listed on the slide, so that the NICE and the Department of Defense. You can absolutely bring your own skills framework. So if, for example, you've got a skills framework that you use in your organization, okay, if you wanted to start using this technology, okay, when we release this, you can give us your skills framework. We can import it into the platform today. There will be a user interface, so you can do that. But that's not going to be there in the initial release. So we can bring your skills framework in. The other thing I would say is, if you're using an industry standard skills framework, okay, and that industry framework is not one we've got on the list, okay, please let us know. Whether you email me directly, whether you reach out to your account exec, because one of the things we would love to know is, we would love to know what skills frameworks our customers are using, because ultimately that allows us to get their, if they're standardized skills frameworks, we can more likely get them imported in the platform ahead of time. Okay, so that's something we would love to do. But rather than us go hunting for every possible skills framework out there, then ultimately that just allows us to make sure we bring in the stuff that you really want to use. And I see yours, Phil, that you've mentioned the skills framework that you want to use, and really interesting. We have Eric Grau from Skillable, so I'm sure he's busy making a note of that, as this is one of the areas that he's got a lot of ownership. So we have the right person in this event as well. So hopefully that's interesting, useful for you. One thing I say I would certainly think about, if skills tagging and skills frameworks are important to you, start thinking about what you might want to do with the Skillable platform and how you might structure things like activities and all those sorts of things. Okay, so now hopefully we have finished our push to our QA environment. I'd also like to just go back to talking about the new instruction editor. Okay, so hopefully lab profile, so no surprise for anybody here, pretty standard. Okay, and if I go and hit and edit instructions, okay, you will see effectively our standard instruction editor. Okay, what we're hoping, so let's say second half of summer, we're going to bring and release our new instruction editor. So what we're hoping you're going to see in the second half of summer, so let's say sort of mid-July onwards, okay, you will then see a button which will say try the new instruction editor, okay, or words to that effect. And when you hit that, that will take you across to our WYSIWYG instruction editor. Okay, so it looks and feels a lot more like a word processor. So the idea being you can absolutely, come in here, and if I've typed some text, I can highlight the text and I can do things like make it bold. When you hover over these, you're going to get the shortcut keys. Now, Control-I always worked for italics, but effectively most people didn't know. So you're going to get little like tooltips on what you can do. You can, of course, go in here and make, whatever changes that you actually want using these. Some of them will open modals. So adding a link will actually pop up a modal and things along those lines. So there's lots of functionality in here. And we'll be using this a lot, obviously, when we get to the lab developer workshops in when we release this. Okay. Again, everything from type text and input fields, even the AI content will be available through here as well. Okay. And one of the things we really want to do is, as well as make it easier. So, we have lots of customers that have people that just create instructions, but when you get put in front of our old Monaco editor, it can be a bit daunting. Okay, so the idea is, for them, this is a far more familiar environment. It looks like a word processor, but hopefully the other thing this is going to allow us to do is actually highlight functionality that we have more as well, rather than have to go and read documents and review the help and all those sort of things. So, there's going to be sort of like when we think about tokens, all the tokens are going to be listed in here. You can search for them. We're going to make it really easy. And then actually you can sort of drag, these across, and it'll put it wherever the cursor is, those sorts of things if you want to. And one thing that's really cool about these sorts of things as well is, as you'll notice, if I hover over these, it will also show things where everything is in the document. Okay. So we'll be doing those sort of things. And then we've got, again, we've got things like the ability to create your activities in here. So again, you can create your activities, you can create activity groups, all that sort of stuff. You've got your variables that you can sort of go and build. Okay, and also your replacement tokens. We call them text swaps now, but they're the same as the replacement tokens. So we're bringing this new instruction editor out. It's all added value. Okay, so effectively, let's say you sit there and go, well, actually, I still prefer doing it the old way in the Markdown. Okay, you can absolutely just switch this to code view, and you can just literally. But the great thing is, again, even though I'm in the sort of Markdown view, I can still use the toolbar and things. Okay. Correct. Yeah, Ian, perfectly correct. It's not live in the demo. It's not live in production yet. Okay. I'm using our QA system to demonstrate that. Okay. So basically, yeah. So you can go back and forth and those sort of things. So you can switch between. Of course, Philip mentioned about obviously using GitHub. Of course, you can still do that model as well. That's not going to go away. You'll still be able to do all those sorts of things. Really the key thing here is we have, say, lots of customers where the people that are actually creating the instructions are not technical. They are more sort of instruction writers rather than they even create the content for the lab. They're just doing the formatting and that, and so this is just a much friendlier environment for them to work in. Okay, so that's coming. So as I say, it's going to be effectively in beta. Late summer is when you'll be able to sort of get access to it. There'll be like a little button, and of course there'll be a little feedback tool on there as well for you to provide feedback. We're close. It's not ready. Couple of things just to be aware of, and this is sort of what we're working on at the moment, is we have some customers that have done some amazing things in instructions, gone well beyond where we thought the possibilities were. I've got a few sets of instructions which do those sort of things as well. So actually the key thing here is sometimes when those advanced instructions get read by the new editor at the moment, it breaks the new editor. So we need to sort of resolve a few reliability issues just to make sure that it's going to be a clean experience for everybody. And once we've done that, we'll be in a position that you can actually start to get your hands on this and start to use it. But hopefully this really sort of starts to show some of the work that we've been doing in the background with the skills validation, so the skills tagging, and the sort of new editor and things. So hopefully you'll see that coming along. Okay. So I was hoping for more integration between external repos and instruction sets. Yeah, absolutely. So certainly, Daniel, if you've got repos that are actually secured, obviously, if you're doing repos that are publicly accessible, you can use those in instruction sets because you can just do an external include in the instruction set, but an external include doesn't include any authentication mechanism. So that doesn't work for private repos. I certainly do know we are going to be doing some work revolving around improving the GitHub integration and things along those lines. So that's absolutely something that is on the roadmap. Might be worth, I don't know if you've submitted a feedback idea, so feedback.skillable.com, Daniel. If you haven't, it'd be brilliant if you could put a feedback idea in. So that would be brilliant if you could do that, because that means that when we start doing that GitHub stuff, the first thing the product team will go and do is they will look at what's in the feedback site. Okay, so that would be brilliant. Okay, so hopefully little sneak peek, just to tease where we're doing and what we've been doing in the background and things. So hopefully you like to look at that and some of the work that we've been doing. So hopefully just a review of some of the stuff that's going on. So awesome. So thank you very much, everybody. Some great feedback and questions there. And certainly I think there's quite a lot on that skills framework stuff. I think we've got you covered there, Phil. So I think we're in a good place.